we've gone from, coding in a terminal to coding in an IDE to having IntelliSense to having AI and all the abstractions of every SDK to now it's like you're speaking in English. You could almost remove the keyboard.
I saw personally how good the models were, and started pushing more and more code, became more and more dependent on it. The moment an outage happened, I remember going back to hand typing the coding, and I was like, wait, where do I start? In that moment, it changed my life. We may have too many dependencies that are at a higher power of our everyday development workflow, right? And I think that's becoming an issue. And I think this is where people like Jack Dorsey are going to thrive, when they're building tools that you can all run locally.
But irregardless, if you start coding with agents and you stop, it's like turning off IntelliSense. Remember back in the day before AI, when everyone was using IntelliSense, like you have
Code in
to
Notepad.
Yeah, you have to like start and stop, or it'd be like doing a Google interview in a Google Docs, like with
Don't
no
remind me.
IDE.
Ask your agent to push your code on Opus 5. Fable 5, push my
Fable.
Sorry, my bad, man. I had
Just description. All those like simple things that you, especially when it has to think, you're wasting more time than you could just go do it. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Agentic Era. It's Isaac and Ken here. It's been a minute, but it's been a good minute. Able to take a breath, look at the landscape, see where we're at with AI, and we're still moving just as fast. So we're here to bring it back to you guys, stay in touch, let you know what's happening, but also continue to hear from you guys. We've had a few different comments, people reach out, things like that. So it's definitely been cool to see the community coming together, and we're here to bring it. But I think what we should start with is the latest development, how hard it's been to push code to Git, because there's been way too many GitHub outages in the last 24 hours. Like, I'm not even talking in the last 24 hours. We have monitors set up for different SaaS outages, and Git is becoming spam. That's how often they're having different outages. Like, I gotta check their down detector because it's off the charts right now. Let's see what it's at. But Ken, yeah, man, I know you felt it too.
Same thing, man. I was in the middle of actually sharing. Yeah, I was in the middle of sharing code, actually. So it hit me actually at a very, very inopportune time, right? Where we're doing some development and we're moving between some different repos, and then there's some changes that we need to kind of merge together and kind of bring to a different sort of source repo. And there's some different things we need to do, that we're doing some repo gymnastics there. And it happened during that time. So like we couldn't see commits. You were going to your repo and you're getting a 404 or whatever it was. And it was really just inconvenient at the time. And everyone was kind of like, well, what do we do now? And just me personally, just watching that was the day before, I think, even some of the Claude stuff. Anthropix has some things going as well, when they have a reported issue with model degradation. It started to make me feel like we may have too many dependencies that are at a higher power of our everyday development workflow, right? And I think that's becoming an issue. And I think this is where people like Jack Dorsey are going to thrive, when they're building tools that you can all run locally in your own instance, right? Oh, goodness. Go for it, man. Give us a breakdown.
No, I was just going to say, like, their P99 is dwindling. Like, look at these actions. This is over the last 90 days. Like, these are legit rough. 2-hour outages on API requests. Like, they're literally shutting down companies because you can't merge code in. Pull request went down. Like, come on. What's happening?
Well, but you don't find this a little bit suspicious that I remember we had a similar conversation last time, and then there was a development on the cursor side, right? And then now you see the same thing, and then they drop that news about origins, right? And it's just a little bit the timing. The timing is just really interesting. And I mean, even outside of that, I mean, I mentioned Jack Dorsey earlier, that Buzz platform, right? You can host your own internal Git and you can have your agents work within it seamlessly. And when you want to, you can push to a higher up repo that you then want to have more visibility to, like the
Or
cloud
like,
and things like that.
are you alluding to like GitHub is shooting themselves in the foot, or they're missing out?
Hey man, look, that's above my pay grade, man. I'm not gonna hop in that conspiracy. That's what's way up there. But I mean, I don't I'd have to see the play. I have to see the play behind that. Or is there any type of sabotage going on? But I mean, just in theory, right? Like how much more code is being pushed right now? Because
Yeah.
agents are pushing code. How
Mm,
much more code? The moment you start seeing dynamic workflows, you start seeing all these platforms that are give your agents ability to talk to each other and work through code. I'll get even to an example of that in a minute, but how much more of that
yeah.
is just causing, like, think about GitHub load bearing all these like developments and all this
That's a good
usage.
point. Yeah, because the average PR is now 5,000, 10,000 lines of code. And actually, looking back a year ago, GitHub was buckling trying to render 10,000 lines of code. So I guess we have to give them some credit for being able to keep up with that. But yeah,
It's
to
a
your
high
point,
demand.
decentralization through companies like Block, the decentralization of repos as well. Yeah, I'm wondering how we would surface that, because the open source community is why we're still thriving. And if everybody's broken up into their own GitHub repos, what happens to the discoverability? Or should I say Git repos? What happens to the discoverability of projects across these various platforms now?
Or, right, maybe it could be a final hosting platform. If you look at it like that, right? If everyone has their own internal Git repositories that they can push changes to quickly, iterate quickly, do breakdowns, maybe what's preventing you from being able to export that to Git or sorry, to GitHub, right? So I've actually done something like that myself with, again, Buzz. I've been messing with that quite a bit. And I have these workflows where I have an agent member that's, kind of driving, kind of like that star pattern is talking to the implementer and the reviewer, the evaluator, all that sort of things, right? And so they're going those iterations, and I've plugged in specific rules for that, which is baked in with Hermes, by the way. So it's a skill that is developed to be able to navigate between those. But that being said, once that life cycle is done and you can go in and be the human in the loop and approve the iterations and pull requests or whatever, I have the option at any point to run a command that I created just out of a basic script and push the code to GitHub, right? So think about now all the churn, because think about how many calls or requests you have to do for issues, for getting the latest code, right? So like you're like bringing how many times are the agents cloning down a repo, or branching off on work trees and syncing up with their regular branches, all those calls, right? What if that happened internally on somebody else's own infrastructure, like their own device? And then now when all that's done, it's just a push. It's a code promotion up, right?
Mm.
To then go on the farther gate. So I'm not saying like that would be more advantageous for GitHub, obviously, less load, right, on their servers. But is that something everybody's going to do, right?
It would
Because
force GitHub to have to play nice if they became the Git connector, so you can connect
mm,
outside sources, including something like GitLab, right? Where GitHub fronts
okay,
the interface, becomes the marketplace of all Git.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
if you guys go that route, we want some royalties for that. But ultimately, somewhere something's going to have to surface, because at the same time, you hosting your own Git, it's fine, it's cool, but think about the amount of like swarm agents you have. Like hopefully your serverless, because your load balance fan out is going to be pretty insane for the amount of pull requests that go in on a given day, even for a single developer. Like developers are now pushing 10, 20 PRs a day across how many agents, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, maybe they're having some scaling challenges. I don't know what's going on at Azure, but if we do move to kind of a what would be on-prem or cloud-prem sort of setups, somebody's going to have
Hybrid.
them all.
So what do you feel like? Because it kind of brings us back to, we're not this. They're not the only ones. So for audience listening, we're not picking on them particular. That one hurt the most this week.
Too
Absolutely.
fresh.
Yeah, too fresh. Very, very fresh. It was like yesterday. Um, but I will say I'm noticing the dependency shifting. It's becoming a little bit much, right? So GitHub, for instance, you can't collaborate with your team in the way you want to, let alone your agents, right? And that you can still go local, but do you really want to have all these stashed changes locally? You probably don't, right? And then also, the side note of that is we have the model providers, right? The model providers are having outages as well, right? And that one looks really weird because then you're faced with the weird standpoint where you're making progress and you're at a certain velocity. The AI provider goes out, and now you're hand coding where everything left off. Like, have you experienced, like, what does that feel like for you? Like, I felt it. I want to hear how you feel. Like, I know that's happened, right?
It's like when the power goes out and you don't have a flashlight, you're just gonna sit in the dark.
Sit in the dark is crazy.
I mean,
Oh man.
there's a level of survival preparedness that you need for the offline world, but for the online world, the same thing. I have felt that because, yeah, I mean, Claude has had outages too. I don't know if we should pull up their P99, but it's
Oh
probably
man.
just as bad as GitHub.
Be easy. Be easy.
But either way, yeah, it's like when these outages happen, you have to contemplate, okay, how deep was the task I was in right now?
Hmm.
Do I pull it out? Can I do it manually? Or was there some other tasks I need to have done that I can wait for this outage to be done, sort of thing. It's a
This,
weird
yeah.
feeling because you can feel powerless to an extent, or from a developer's standpoint, it's almost like you can switch gears, but the effort to switch gears may take longer than what it would be to just wait and switch tasks instead. It's like jumping into a whole
100%.
nother code base at this point, because if you've been coding with agent for so long, sure, you're reading your code, everyone has their own, I vibe this much, or I don't vibe this much, or I understand this code base, or I don't understand this code base. Everyone has their own level of how they feel their credibility is based off of the code that they understand. But irregardless, if you start coding with agents and you stop, it's like turning off IntelliSense. Remember back in the day before AI, when everyone was using IntelliSense? It's like that. Like you have
Code in
to,
Notepad.
yeah, you have to like start and stop, or yeah, it would be like doing a Google interview in a Google Docs, like with
Don't
no
remind. Don't remind me.
with no IDE, you're also removed. So to your point, we've gone from coding in a terminal to coding in an IDE to having IntelliSense to having AI and all the abstractions of every SDK, to now it's like you're speaking in English. You could almost remove the keyboard. You're speaking in English
Yeah.
app. And so these layers of dependencies, plus all the third-party services that you're integrated into,
Mhm.
it's you're so far removed from, I guess, control, right? That you do have to
Yes.
kind of take a step back and see what level levers you can pull, right?
And it's good to call these things out too, man, because we're all at different layers of this, different levels of this. Those on the bleeding edge, like, yes, those are the ones trying to ditch their keyboard and they're purely just talking to AI. You'll see it on some of the demos and whatever else, but your typical person might still be prompting. And some people say, I don't prompt anymore. I just run loops. And I use now they're talking about graph engineering. So there's all these different layers, but I think what you're calling out is a very important thing that, this is really shifting as far as our power is concerned, right? Because if you're used to only doing voice now, how are your typing skills? Right? What are you gonna you're hit the hardest when these things go down. If your firmware crashed on your computer and now you're typing, right? Because it can't your microphone's not available. Like what are you like are you is it gonna be a struggle to type? Now that's
Yeah.
probably more consistent than some of these models right now because of the way things are going. But we don't anticipate your microphone going out. But also, right, if you're used to typing and doing those sort of things, you mentioned like the IntelliSense and all that sort of stuff. It's like I think for me, your mind has to just even shift on that velocity you're just moving in, right? We're literally scanning from going hard problem to hard problem across multiple projects right now. You're gonna stop running on that treadmill and you're gonna start not even a walk on the treadmill. You got off the treadmill. You know when you walk on the treadmill, get off, and you feel like you're moving, you're moving fast than what you really are. It's exactly like that, right? Because
Yeah.
now you're on one project, and some people are using agents to explore code bases. I know I have, right? And we're not just for the audience, right? We're not talking about your small proof of concept that like has not even in the wild of production and not used across many teams. We're talking about these larger repos, enterprise grade, multiple people have mono repos now. Like just think about how you have to reason about that when your agent has told you this change exists in these 5 places for these different apps. So if you change this is going to happen. And being able to reconcile that in the test. Now we're going back to going through and opening all the files and tracing through and clicking through like, it felt great going to like get definition and seeing it. But now it's like that would be Fred Flintstone.
Right. So
So
much so that
so
the
yeah.
default isn't even your IDE anymore. Like I was frustrated when Cursor defaulted to agent window. It's like, no, like I want to see my code, whatever. But eventually you
Now,
you almost get used to it, right? You're like, okay,
yeah,
well, I guess I can always open it on the side if I need to. It's what I guess what level of control is okay. I think everyone has their own different flavors. Like speaking for
yeah,
myself, um, one thing I still try to make sure I do is the terminal commands. If I lose access
yes.
to how quickly I can do git commands or rebasing and all that sort of stuff, I feel like I would be really slow because you almost would be wasting a prompt just to push or, like it's unnecessary spend.
Ask your
Um,
agent to push your code on Opus 5. Fable 5, push my
nah,
Git code.
Fable. Like, push the stuff,
Sorry, my bad, man. I had
change
to. I'm
this
sorry, my
description. All those like simple things that you,
bad.
especially when it has to think, you're wasting more time than you could just go do it. But I mean, sometimes it speaks to the human nature of like, you always want the easy button. So I think for the community, what I want to know is like, what are you guys willing to sacrifice to offload to AI? And what are you guys considering things that you want to ensure you maintain and skills you have? A lot of people gave up typing. Um, I would like to know to keep typing. Like autocorrect is hard enough, you know. And now you just have these apps like, well, I'm not even trying to put anybody on, but now you have all these speech apps. So what,
it, it's I think you hit on it like right on the head, man. It's like as we're going up this dependency stack, like as that's gaining more and more power, and we're depending on more and more things for more basic needs. It's still important, man, to run just your own exercises locally, right? Whether it be, from the terminal, right, and being familiar with that, or if it's, coding. Me personally, and I felt this early on. My first model provider outage, when that happened, I mean, we were coming from back from like December 2025, and we saw how good I saw personally how good the models were, and we were started pushing more and more code, became more and more dependent on it. The moment an outage had happened, I remember going back to hand typing the coding, and I was like, wait, where do I start? And that moment changed my life. I was like, no, never again, man. So I still have my little side, work projects, not even work, but just cool little projects to just do that don't mean anything, but just give me the practice of just going through some of the object-oriented programming, some of the UI stuff that I need to be familiar with, or just, all the way of the stack, right? So even your, database, you don't want to lose track of, how you're creating your schemas and different things like that, right? Like you want to be able to still have some of that in that way, at least, and not to be like the most excellent proficient, but when this outage happens, you don't feel so lost. Because I
Yeah.
felt lost in that moment. And I'm like, this has only been 3 months. Like I've been coding all my life. Like, why do I feel like this? That was scary. It was scary. You know what I mean? So that's why ever since then, man, I'm just trying to still hands to keyboard, hand rolling some code. I'm still using IntelliSense, yes, but
Yeah.
it's not, no agents, no agentic coding, no harnesses, any of that. So
Yeah.
it's
It's just
important to keep those fresh.
we always abstract difficulties, right? Whether that was through the industrial age, now in this technology age, even driving, right? Autopilot, right? How many people are gonna forget how to drive eventually? Like
Yeah.
it's it's like you offload certain things and you're like, all right, maybe this is okay. Pulling the calculator out, right? Um, we keep hitting these different levels of extractions, and so at what point is the abstraction too much for an engineer, specifically an engineer, because software engineering is your bread and butter. So how much are you willing to offload to the AI?
Well, even then, right? Let's bring this shift this over to the enterprise, right? So we know that from an enterprise standpoint, it's very just I should say non-advantageous for the token spend and some of the different things like that that's going on. Do you think that enterprises will let this get to a point where people can fully be independent? Because I feel like there's still, there's different tricks of the trade they can do on, even I've seen some enterprises do their own model routing now, right? So you can't just get on there and say, hey, I want Fable to drive this thing. No, you're stuck in auto mode and it's going to auto select for you. And they've already preconceived, even, I mean, even the IDEs have this built in, even the chat agents have this built in. Like you can correctly assign which model gets which route, right? And which is more advantageous for cost, which makes sense, right? But do you think even from enterprise, like, are they even giving people the ability to be fully out right now? Are we there now? Is everyone up to speed? What's your taste on that as far as like
Yeah,
where enterprise is at with AI?
it's a tough question from multiple angles because, I mean, reflecting back, like if you had a Sonnet 3, you wouldn't want that to code for you all day. You can
No,
feel the difference when you
no.
go from a Grok to a OpenAI to an Opus,
Hmm.
whatever, right? So the question is if things are auto routing or auto balancing, it's at what level? Because engineers always need
Yep.
the keys, or at a senior level, whatever. You always need the admin access because you need to get in through the back and do certain things. So if you can't choose the model for your use case, you're actually going to get frustrated. You're going to have to go through an IT ticket. It's going to take forever, and at the end of the day, you're burning more time than the token might have been worth. So it is going to be a tough balance for enterprise to determine that. But I do believe for the majority of business use cases, um, yeah, how technical you may or may not be, I think a bulk of people don't actually know the difference between the models, or feels the difference between the models, or knows
Good
which
point.
one to choose for what task. I think it takes a level of like wanting to understand and pushing the limits of some of these models to really know which one to pull out. Because again, these are new tools in our toolbox where each one has a different use case. And I think as we push away from more like generalized models, more specialized models, where you're seeing models very specific on security, or very specific on QA testing, or very specific on back end or front end. As you get these specialized models, I do think that a model router can still help because it knows the request, it can push it to that specialized agent, and you'll get it back. I think right now, because we're using all these generalized models, you really know what it's good for, what it's not, depending on the task you're trying to have. Do my taxes versus code up this UI. Like totally different
Yeah,
things.
totally
Using
different.
the same model for both. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. But I mean, that brings me to the next point though, right? We heard, Alex Karp get up there and say, hey, are you really going to give these model providers or frontier shops your IP, right? So are we going to start seeing people developing their own models now, like grabbing one of the open weight models, doing some post training and specializing it? I mean, there's a lot of room for that. I mean, but
For sure.
infrastructure is needed. But I mean, I feel like we might be getting close to that point,
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
of specialization.
we have to, and I think we're just trending in that direction because we solved all the other problems, right? Why are
Mm,
things not doing what we want, or why this agent hallucinates on this very minute business concept, 3,000 lines in the code base from 2009, right? Those things
mm.
get solved when we pull out the wikis and building the context libraries across these specialized agents. But eventually someone's going to say, well, our wiki is a terabyte at this point of MD files across our whole business.
Everybody MD is crazy.
Maybe we should
It's wild.
train a model on our wiki.
Mm.
We can generalize the use of it and not have to rely on the wiki. In my mind,
Yeah,
that's the obvious next step because everyone's just building the context right now.
that's a good point. I mean, when your context gets overloaded and you can actually balance that out with just putting that in training, your context is free to roam, right? And then there's that feedback loop, right? Here we're going to get into the concept of if you do own your own post training shop, these frontier models right now, they're having their agents or their models train their next models. What's preventing you from letting your model run in your business? Find all the things that need to get added in context when you see, like, through the chain of thought, when you see all the different tool calls, when you see all that sort of happening, being able to then do a feedback loop and retrain a new version of that model based on your learning. And then now that one has it, right? So it's kind of a cyclical thing. You can just continue to go and it gets better and better and better. Next thing you know, you have a centralized brain for your business,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So,
What about you on that side? So obviously, like the level of depth for an engineer is continuing to change. Like thinking
mhm.
back on your past to where you are, and looking slightly into the future, we're already talking about becoming machine learning engineers. Like, is this an exciting thing? Like, do you enjoy having to step into all these new domains because of AI?
I think it's good to be aware, in general of where everything is at, because the more you grasp a lot of these concepts in these different areas within tech, as tech evolves, it's a lot easier for you to keep up to speed, right? So you're not saying you have to go far deep into anything at this point. If you get more breadth, again, with AI, the depth is already coming up to you, it's surfacing to you. It's now you taking that knowledge and having the wisdom to know where to apply it and what part of your stack and what part of your layers, right? So I will say though, it's not like it would have been a year ago, right? Because if I'm gonna go post train a model, right, I've already seen videos about training models with Claude, right? So it's not like I have to go pull out this old book and like roll through the pages. So for me, in general, it's already gonna be light years in speed away from where it used to be, right? So I mean, I'm excited about it. Because what it allows us to do and what it unlocks is we get to operate off pure strategy, right? Before it was strategy, then you go toil for a little bit, do some proof of concepts, go do all that, go through a whole cycle of it. By the time you get down to it, you've covered all the layers, and you're like, okay, I got this thing working. Let me take a breather, right?
Mm.
Nice, evolution of a concept, put it out there in the wild, open source it, whatever. It's great. But now you get to move across with such speed. Like, who knows if you weren't tired before where you would have gotten to,
Yeah,
right? So it really opens up a lot of that. For me personally, just so again, strategy. And by strategy, I'm saying, if you're developing software right now, and you're building an application and you don't have a mechanism for determining how well your application is doing, how well new features are doing, a way to feed that loop back into your application, the way to discover that and let it self-learn itself, let your system self-learn itself up to where expectations are for your exact target market base. Like you're not following the strategy. You know what I mean? So to me, that's the exciting part, is that now I don't have to go build something and then go kind of figure out, okay, take this around and pilot it a lot and go through the logs and tracing or whatever. A lot of that stuff can just be streamlined for you. And if you have a feedback loop, that's important. There's no easier time or better time to have a feedback loop. So I will
Yeah.
say all the strategy points for me at this point, I love it, man. I'm
Where
fully game.
where would you point somebody like fresh out of college? They just got their computer science degree. How do they get to that level that we're speaking of in the job market right now? It is
Mm.
kind of rough for a lot of new people. What are those, maybe let's say, top 5 things that they need to go grasp to make themselves marketable right now?
Oh man, top five. That's a tough question, man, because I really don't even honestly know the real answer on where some of this stuff stands. Because I hear a lot of, when you hear the job market, you hear a lot of different, you hear both sides of it. But I think both sides kind of agree that it's an adverse market for some of the fresh, new grads, like you mentioned. But no one really has a lot of tangible info they're putting to it, right? So that's always been interesting to me. But me personally, I think that using AI to learn in general is one of the bigger tools, right? So it takes something for me personally. If I were just starting out fresh, I'd want to take something and having the foresight of what I have right now. I want to take something I'm interested in and build it, right? Like from scratch. Obviously, we're not talking about, no agents, no intelligence. We mean just like building it out, right? Because you have that ability now. And I think along the way, getting the agents to tell me about the things that I don't readily identify. Okay, I saw you use this. I saw you use RBAC, or yeah, RBAC instead of using keys. Why did you do that? Oh, well, because Faith will tell you, because of a security vulnerability, blah, blah, blah. Anybody with your connection string can use this. So you're like, oh, okay. So you're starting to learn some of the concepts and things like that. So as you're going, and again, don't get your agent to like 10,000 lines of code and say, hey, what does this all mean? But iterate, if you're fresh and new out of that, and build something. And I think some of these concepts that I think it's actually more advantageous for some of the younger folks coming in, because a lot of us that have been in here for a while, we're having to adjust and adapt our minds. Like I just talked a few episodes ago, right, where I was trying to get used to the velocity we can code at. I was like literally losing it. I had to take a break and just go no agent for a minute, right? They don't have to deal with that. Their brain can be trained automatically from the way that this era is. And so them coming into concepts, like I was talking about feedback loops, they should know some of the terms, right? What is context? What happens if context gets too large? What's the big deal about, parameters? Why do you want mixture of experts, right? So, you know, thinking into those big comment, and it's not hard to find these big vocab words right now because it's all over your Twitter. Right? It's all over the place. So go through it, look for things you can't readily identify, and start learning those concepts and just start digging in and build something while you're doing it. Right. So I think that's the key, man. I don't think it has to be any big, huge blueprint. I think doing that, and then eventually, when you get far enough in, you're going to figure out, I could provide value to this individual or this company or whatever else. Or I built something cool and there's something I haven't really seen done before that I've stumbled into. The different things like that, right? But I say start with something you're interested in, because then you'll be more apt to keep at it, right? Because if you're not interested, it's like, yeah, you're gonna you're gonna drop it, and like it's not worth the it's not worth the striving right now, right? So that's kind of my take on it, man. What about you? What about you?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. Like finding something you're most interested in is key number one, because otherwise it's going to be too easy to just
Yeah.
give up. Hopefully not. Like hopefully you getting through the degree phase and all that keeps you pushing. But I do want to recognize that there are a ton of people right now that are struggling with where they even want to go, whether they have it or not.
Mm, okay. Okay.
Direction do they take software, right?
Okay.
Some people really enjoyed writing line by line and felt this sort of strength to being able to write code, and nobody else
We
in
all
the room
did.
can understand them, and it's all kind of leveled at that point. So you do have to find another level of expertise on your side. And yeah, you may not have the amount of years yet, but to Ken's point, think about your strengths now. Like, you actually are starting with AI. So imagine what that looks like 5, 10 years down the road, and keep building on those strengths. So, I think number one is, yeah, be interested, just like you said. Um, Continue to have like some grit there too, like pushing through when things get hard, when Claude goes down, like figuring out how you can get to the resources you need. And if you actually don't know what to code, I would say go find an open source project, like a real one that you care about, and don't just go change the README. Like, create a feature that gets merged into an open source code base. Make that your goal. Create a plugin that people leverage, or something that you can become the maintainer of. Um, there is a lot of low hanging fruit. You don't have to go build this new startup that everyone's doing on X. There's tons of projects that people are still depending on, that people can't maintain anymore. You can find those and support, right? Otherwise, yeah, I mean, it's also finding a group, being able to be around people who are like-minded. Not everybody went into computer science or boot camp with friends in that same space. But I'll tell you what, once you do get on the same page as other people in the field, it does elevate you. Just being in those conversations, being in those rooms are going to be valuable. So always continue to seek guidance. If you don't have any space, reach out to us too. We have a community. We're open to sharing resources. We just need you guys to tell us what you need in the comments. We're here for all of you guys watching this, if you made it this far. Lastly, I guess I'll say, don't focus on the software as much as the patterns. The patterns are what's important. It's not whether you use React or Vue or Node or Python, because the agents can abstract a lot of that. I think it's the patterns, the way you integrate, the way you create things to be more extensible. You're always equating software to building a house or a car. Like, there's certain foundations that have to be in place before you put load on top of that. And software works the same way. So always just consider the patterns and the architecture as a deeper thing that you want to fundamentally understand, because the AI can give you options, but you still need to reason about those and select what's best for you, and where you see, that code base growing into. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. And I think also, kind of, you made me think about it when you said, not everybody wants, like, even knows where they're going to be, where they want to work in, right? Like, what aspect of software, what aspect of business, whatever have you. And I think it's important that finding a problem that they want to solve in a way, right? So, like, it goes back to the interest-based thing, because really it's like we all have judgment and we have taste, and everyone's probably heard folks say that right now. But you're using an app right now, and you probably used one before when it's like, man, this doesn't feel great. Like, why can't I navigate where I want to? Like, if I'm walking around, and how hard is it for me to navigate this application? So even just knowing that, from, you don't have to be a UI UX expert, but what feels right and what doesn't. Based on judgment, what would be a better use case for this application, or whatever is missing, a gap somewhere. Like, I've seen several. I'm not going to say any right now in a certain couple industries, because Isaac and I will talk about that. But when it comes to, there's gaps in all kind of industries that we use every day. And so I think that's very important for folks to kind of just take that and make that a tangible thing, because you might take that and you might go with that experience and say, hey, I want to go work at this place. Or you might get so far deep into it, you might say, you know what, I can start this thing. Like we can get this thing going with the right people and move forward. So yeah, I definitely want to just, yeah, wanted to land back on that because you made me think about that when you said, not everybody really knows the path they want to get into. Do they even want to write software and that kind of thing? So yeah, man.
Yeah, there's a ton of roles, and there's a ton more. Like, people who graduate with engineering step into QA automation or security or front end, back end. Like, there was so many avenues, and now with what we're talking about, the barrier to entry is lower even for things like machine learning, right? Training
Mhm.
models. You could become an expert in whatever you want. Whether or not somebody will pay you for it, I think you have to be able to finesse like what that means. But yeah, the AI at the end of the day is enabling you to focus on the things you want to focus on. And if you
Hmm.
choose to focus on all the negative aspects of what's missing, or how it used to be, you're wasting time. We are moving very, very fast. Like, offline, we were just talking about how industries are shifting to really specific, minute business cases to solve, because if you're at the bleeding edge, you're all running into the same roadblocks right now. And there are companies who have just now released a chatbot. There's a huge range of technical problems to solve, and where you're at is really depending on you and your leadership, and how far into the trenches you're willing to take your engineers. So
I'm not
yeah.
gonna lie to you, man. It was wild when you just said that, but it's true. He said they just released a chat, but I was a little hurt. I was like, "What?" But it's true. But yeah, well, let's leave that there because if you're listening, hey, nothing against it. Hey, better late than never. But yeah, there's the grass is green on the other side. But yeah, man, I think that was great. And I want to also in this note, let's talk like one more thing I'm seeing is that, I want to talk about also the mental effects that we have to be aware of. And it's not like we're gonna go solve it and go have some magic, therapeutical way to go about this endeavor and solve all the issues that are out there. But I'm starting to see things that, like you just mentioned earlier, right? We're all kind of coming to the same conclusions, right? Is that because, and we're saying this because Isaac and I are having conversations, and then we're talking about things and getting excited about an initiative or an opening, and then we're seeing like something frontier drop like in a month, right? And it's like, wait, why are we thinking the same thing that like we're not in their shop. We're in no way related. And so I'm like, is that groupthink? Or is it just the fact that this stuff is all bleeding edge? Right? But at the same time, you do have to think about it. The models are all feeding all of us the information, right? And so I say that to say, because I was noticing the other day, and this is again, this is not just even tech. This is in general. And this is when it became general, that's when I was really my antenna started to raise. I'm starting to notice people start to ask agents, whether it be Chat GPT, whether it be Claude, whatever it is, right? People are now, instead of communicating back and forth and paraphrasing, digesting the information and paraphrasing and sending that back to someone, people are sending agent responses. like like that to me, and it's different if it's some crazy engineering thing, right? And it's like, hey, go break down this 50-page document and give me the blah blah blah. Okay, all right, itemize it. Let's all read the itemized list. No. I mean, hey, what's the advantage of doing this approach? And then you see Claude. I'm like, well, like what's the point of me talking to you right now? Right? Like I could have just looked this up, you know what I mean? And so that started to really bother me, man, because I feel like we're starting to outsource our understanding, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do about that right now. like
Yeah.
like I don't know, go
Yeah,
campaign
no,
or go like,
I think even for the even abstracting it back to, text, or, you know, voice to voice to speech,
hmm hmm
it's not actually pulling in your tones, right? So it's morphing what you're saying. So you're always like removing the human element by one step somewhere. If even if like on a Zoom call or this chat, right? Like
hmm
you're able to pick up different tones and we see each other and whatnot, but the abstractions are becoming very deep as you continue to automate more and more. Just some of the generalization pieces that humans were used to doing. Yeah, I think it's a good question, Ken. Maybe it's a question we pose to the community. Just,
yeah,
like
yeah.
again, what level of abstraction do you think is okay for AI? Where do you want to see the human aspect continue? I like talking to people. I would hope like if we're having an intellectual conversation, you're not just giving me chat GPT responses.
Hey, Claude, respond to Isaac.
But yeah, it's a fun time right now. It's also just an interesting time because there's no like standards on any of this stuff, right?
All right, man. Bookmark this because someone's gonna tell their agent to talk to you about how they broke your branch. Like,
Yeah.
like someone
That
broke
agent
main branch.
responses in the comments.
Yeah. Hey, talk to
We're
Isaac.
gonna
Tell
get
him
all
no,
the
I don't want to
bots.
do
All the
that.
bots are gonna hate us.
Yeah. Yeah, man. If anything, I'm taking away. I'm like, man, we're gonna have vintage things like, they have book clubs now. We're gonna have like coding clubs where just people go back and code by hand for no reason, or they go talk about complex topics together without any agents involved whatsoever. Just sit around and just think. So we'll see, man. But yeah, that's something I noticed, and I was like, man, that just really kind of I didn't know how I felt about it because I've seen it wasn't just one person, it wasn't two people, and they weren't. It wasn't. It was more than three, and they were not in the same industry.
Yeah.
So that's when I saw that, I was like, okay, I'm gonna be talking to ChatGPT now. I'm just gonna like
Yeah, and
people are gonna be sending me
they're
their
still gonna make you
ChatGPTs.
defend your response against what the agent told you.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well, I'll be honest, man. I'll be honest. By the time I read it, I was already fatigued. So when I read it, I was like, I looked at it, the long paragraphs and string of just blah that was on there, and I was like, no, type this out. What does this mean? I didn't even read it because it was the end of my day and I was already tapped out. And I'm like, okay, no, what do you think this says?
yeah,
And I
I'll
just,
let my agent
yeah,
talk to your agent, and then we'll
yeah,
talk.
there you go. Yeah, hey, talk to my agent real quick. My brain is fried. So yeah, man. So it's something to look out for, man. As we're outsourcing our intelligence and understanding, man, to make sure we're still keeping it, man. We got to still keep it. For the back to the newcomer conversation. If you're working through new projects, you're new to the field, make sure you're understanding the content that you're reading. Don't just take agents verbatim text and just put it in stuff. And I can't now because Claude's watermarking it, but that's a different conversation. We'll save that for
Mm.
another pod. We'll save the watermarking for
Oh, how are
another
you gonna
pod.
do that?
They may be outed anyways. This may fix itself. Thanks, Anthropic. Thank you. No, but yeah, man. So I'll leave them with that, man. So we can go and close it out. Any closing words, man, before we part ways?
No, just that. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you guys. We're hoping to, serve the community. So again, reach out. Let us know what you guys want to see. And if you made it this far, I mean, you deserve a prize. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Take it easy.